This club helps to develop young leaders by providing them with real leadership opportunities and the resources to address issues that matter to them. With passion, creativity, and hope, these Higgins students, along with 30 of their grade 7 and 8 peers, are making positive change in their school community and beyond. They are currently leading a social norms campaign that provides a platform to get their peers talking about and spreading the message about the importance of positive peer influence and self-esteem. These students are real examples of how a positive developmental environment can promote confidence, competence, and the connections they need to make good choices, take responsibility for their own lives, and to be agents of positive change. And I wanted to thank Mr. Busey for being here, and Sandy Drover from the Healthy Peabody Collaborative. It's wonderful to have you here, Jess and Logan, and you're going to come forward and with Ms. Murtagh lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I get to do that?
Yep.
You're switching off.
Switching today.
All right.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. So, Jess Logan, we'll turn it over to you and tell us about what you've been working on.
So, the Above Influence Club here at the Higgins is a club with the students, and it promotes positive self-image, or a better self-image. And these posters are the latest campaign, and they're all around the school with different positive words. And the background is filled with all different ones, and there's one highlighted in bold. And the words surround the school and make it a more positive environment.
Great.
We have previous campaigns in the passages of video that help kids have more self-esteem in themselves, because when you believe in yourself, you'll do better in the future.
That's terrific. Thank you. Is there any questions for Jess or Logan? Yes, Mrs. Dunn.
It's a compliment. I've noticed the signs all over the cafeteria and the lobby as we came in on the poles and everything. It's a really nice campaign. Did you all, how did you decide to do it? Was this something where you had to think of the word that appears on your own poster, or was it kind of like assigned randomly?
Well, we got to pick the word here,
Oh, good.
and the words in the background, I think they were pretty much the same on everyone's poster.
Mm-hmm.
The word that's highlighted in bold is the word we chose that we thought fit ourselves.
Excellent.
And every student got to pick a word that they thought made themselves feel special and different from everybody else, something that made them themselves.
Like a special quality.
What's your word?
My word's loyal.
Loyal, and yours?
Kind.
Kind. Excellent. Well, thank you. It's very, very nice having the arrangement next to you and then seeing those signs. It's really striking. I mean, you notice it as soon as you come in the school. I know that was at City Hall last week, so a lot of people are seeing your faces around Peabody.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you both very much for being here, and thank you for leading us. This is great.
Thank you.
And I want to thank Mr. Lampkin for being here, and again, Mr. Busey and Sandy Drover for her hard work on behalf of our kids.
I like that centerpiece right there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's beautiful.
Okay. We'll go now to approval of minutes. We have March 12, 2019 regular school committee meeting minutes set for approval.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Thank you. You've heard the motion by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Hockman for approval of the minutes of March 12, 2019 regular school committee meeting minutes. On the motion, Mrs. Dunn.
Thank you. Just a quick correction on page 2 at the very bottom, under continued business, MSBA Higgins project, it should say Mrs. Dunn stated nothing to report, and then Mrs. Carpenter requested to hold the next topic of the change in school times.
So approval with that minor change. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mr. Arnott?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Thank you. Next item, approval of bills. Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant A number 4111, dated March 26, 2019, in the amount of $86,176.06, subject to audit.
Second.
Thank you. Further motion by Mrs. Carpenter for approval of warrant A number 4111, seconded by Mr. Olympio. Roll call vote for approval, please.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mr. Arnott?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant B number 4112, dated March 26, 2019, in the amount of $1,023,057.30, subject to audit.
Second.
Thank you. For the motion by Mrs. Carpenter for approval of warrant B number 4112, seconded by Mr. Olympio. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mr. Arnott?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go now to continued business. Mrs. Dunn, anything to report on the MSBA Higgins project?
Just a quick update, Mr. Mayor. We had a very brief concentrated meeting last week on some of the continuing work that's being done at Higgins, all to get in preparation for the spring sports, which will be using the new fields very shortly. So things are wrapping up, but there are still a few things being taken care of now that we're into the new growing season and new sports season.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Next item, anything new on the change in school start time to report today? No. Okay, we'll hold that. Public participation, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on a topic pertaining to school system? Please, the microphone is open. Seeing no one,
Yeah, I think so.
I will turn it over to Ms. Murtagh for her superintendent's report. Ms. Murtagh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking for a waiver request for Center School Variety Show. Due to their cafegimatorium at the Center School, they were looking to use the beautiful Higgins Middle School auditorium. So I'm looking for that waiver request and approval from the school committee.
I'd like to make a motion to follow the recommendation of the superintendent.
Second.
Heard the motion by Mr. Amico for approval, seconded by Mr. Hockman. Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm looking for a field trip approval for the AFJROTC to Cody Education Center in New Hampshire for a field trip.
Motion to follow the recommendation of the superintendent.
And second.
Thank you. You've heard the motion for approval by Mr. Arnott, seconded by Mrs. Dunn. Roll call vote, please.
Abstain.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Also in your thank you. Also in your packet, you have your monthly expenditure report and also the monthly Bay State textiles report. Part of the superintendent's report, there are 2 late communications, and I do apologize for that. But we do have our 4 kids only after school, before and after school enrollment totals. I would like you to accept.
Motion to receive.
Second.
As you can see, once you receive your enrollment totals, 4 kids only has increased from FY18 to FY19, both in the before and after school programs.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve,
To receive.
to receive?
Yes.
Thank you. From Mr. Hockman,
And second.
seconded by Mr. Amico. Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
The second late communication is from the Caseload Task Force Subcommittee, and this is just something to receive and what we talked about in our next, on our next agenda.
Motion to receive.
Heard the motion to receive communication from Superintendent Murtagh by Mr. Hockman, seconded by Mr. Amico. All in favor to receive? That's a vote.
Thank you. That's it for now.
Okay, next item, we have written communications. We do have 3 written communications today. One is a letter from the Peabody Veterans Council in regards to an expression of support for the ROTC program at Peabody Veterans Memorial High School.
Motion to receive.
Second.
Motion received by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Hockman. All in favor for approval of receipt? That's a vote. Second item is a letter to the City Council in regards to the statement of interest for Peabody Veterans Memorial High School and Center School.
Motion to receive.
Second.
Heard the motion to receive by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Hockman. All in favor for receipt? That's approved. And to report, we did have the meeting last week with the City Council, and there was approval from the Finance Subcommittee for approval of our statement of interest. The final vote will be Thursday evening in front of the full council, and I think we will have great support for the submittal of those 2 statement of interests for a new renovation, new/major renovation at both the high school and the center school. And the third written communication is the MASC 2-part series school start times. A special 2-part event for the school start times. That's informational.
Motion to receive.
Motion to receive from Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Hockman. All in favor of receipt? That's a vote on the motion. Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the superintendent. Thank you. On the MASC series, it's a 2-part series on school start times.
Yes.
I wish I could be in attendance for at least the second part, which is Saturday, I think, April 4th or 6th? 6th, I believe.
Yes.
But I have a prior commitment that prevents me from getting there. Is there any possibility of getting someone from the school department there so that we can, or get the materials from MASC or somehow have that? If no one's able to attend, at least get the materials for at least the second part of that series on our agenda for our first April meeting?
Yes, Mr. Hockman, I will make that happen.
Thank you.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay. Okay, we'll go to subcommittee reports. Education Subcommittee, Mr. Hockman, anything to report?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. Finance Subcommittee, Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. I'd like to report that the Finance Subcommittee met last night with the crossing guards, so we're looking forward to successful negotiations with them shortly. And the Finance Subcommittee would like to present tonight, there's a handout. We need to discuss a deficit in our current budget, and we could be possibly looking for a supplemental, and Ms. Murtagh has a handout and a presentation to discuss with the full committee in regards to that.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. School safety, Mr. Olympio?
Yes, we met tonight prior to this meeting. We met with Chief Griffin to go over the safety protocols throughout the district, and we'll schedule another meeting in the near future.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Olympio. Athletics and wellness, Mr. Hockman?
Yes, thank you. We do have a meeting scheduled with Allison Kilcoyne and her staff for, I believe it's April 2 at 5 p.m. here at the Higgins.
Great, thank you, Mr. Hockman. Quality and standards, Mrs. Dunn?
Nothing to report tonight.
Great. Mr. Arnottis, the City Council
Nothing.
liaison, nothing? Mrs. Dunn, anything to report on the Parent Advisory Board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Parent Advisory Board met last night. We were scheduled to hear from the Youth Advisory Council from the health clinic at the high school, but we've rescheduled that to April 29th, which will be our next Parent Advisory Board meeting. Last night, the parents were brought up to date with all the submissions of the statements of interest and where everything is in the process. They had a lot of really good questions about those projects, and then we had a nice discussion about trying to increase membership and attendance at PTO meetings, and people were sharing ideas on how to do that. And the members also had some nice talks about fundraising and some of the troubles that they have and some of the things that have worked. So the next Parent Advisory Board meeting will be Monday, April 29th here at Higgins at 6:30 p.m. and our Youth Advisory Council from the Health Clinic will be there to speak with parents and explain to them what the health clinic does. And the staff will be coming with them as well.
Great.
And actually, Mr. Mayor, if I could say something, last week I had that privilege of attending the presentation that the students did at the State House. And I was there with Mr. Arnottis and legislative delegation, and Superintendent Mertag spoke. It was excellent, and the students were wonderful representatives of Peabody Veterans Memorial High School. I think everybody would have been really proud to see those students and what they did and how well they spoke. And the presentations were very interesting, and then they went off to lobby. So a lot of future leaders in that group. They were great.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Building and Grounds, Mr. Amico?
Nothing at this point, thank you.
Thank you. Special Education Parent Advisory Board, Mr. Olympio?
Yes, I'll be scheduling a meeting for Wednesday, April 24th at 6 o'clock at right here at the Higgins.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Olympio. Okay, we'll now turn it over to Superintendent Mertag for an update on the 2018-2019 budget. Ms. Mertag,
Yes,
I'll turn it
thank
over
you.
to you and Dr. Lord.
Okay. Okay, tonight I'm going to be doing a little presentation on two areas, special education and transportation, that are so fluid and unpredictable in our budget. So tonight I'm just going to give you a little overview of, or a profile of what we currently look like in our district. We have 6,055 students, and we have 90 new students since October 1st, and a quarter of these students came in on IEPs. Our special education rate is at 20.3%. Our 504 plans are at 6%. Economically disadvantaged are at 40%. English language learners are at 9.1%. And students who are absent more than 5 days, as we are working diligently in our community to increase our students being in front of students for good, teachers for good instruction. We want them here, but more than 5 days absent is 12.2%. So this gives you a little profile of us as a district. So special education, like I said, is unpredictable. So our out-of-district tuitions, if we take a look at this, our tuition projected, oh, perfect. Sorry. Didn't mean that. Sorry. Yeah, we're good. Thank you. Didn't mean that. Something else came out. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Chris.
It was good timing, Kara. It's
Perfect
fine.
timing.
It's fine.
Perfect. Maybe. It's a little temperamental. Maybe. So much for my PowerPoint. Okay, so I'm going to continue without. Sorry. I swear to God, I did not set that up.
Working on it.
Oh, there you go.
Just do a phone.
Thank you. So back to our out-of-district tuition. So our tuition projected for special ed department for the FY19 budget was $6.9 million. Less our 240 grant, our special education IDA grant for $600,000. So what we proposed was 6.3. However, based on last year's population, we thought we could reduce the budget by 500,000, but we have had students move into the district, go out for extended evals, or have residential placements. So you can see that we are in a deficit of $846,451.93 in our special education out-of-district tuitions. As we continue, our transportation costs, it flows into our out-of-district placements. However, we are in the black for now. For our FY19 budget, we projected $1.7 million, and our actual as of right this minute is 1.6. So we are in the black for 85,000. However, again, unpredictable and extremely fluid. So homeless and foster transportation, homeless and foster care transportation, this is an area that we have difficulty budgeting for because we never know from year to year. So we budgeted this year for 150,000. Actual right now is 550,000, so our deficit is negative 400,000. So I need to talk a little bit about homeless and foster care. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm worried about pulling everything out. Sorry. So currently, Peabody has 134 either homeless or foster care cases. And with new regulations that every district is facing, these are things that I think people need to know. That Peabody has to cost share when non-special education students get placed in the district that are not their school of origin. Also, foster care and DCF students that get placed out of Peabody and want to continue in school, Peabody, we pay full cost. There's no cost share anymore. And if a special education student gets placed out of Peabody and wants to continue school in Peabody, and transportation is a condition of their IEP, it costs Peabody, we pay full cost for that transportation to and from school. So in looking at this, I'm asking the school committee to seek a supplemental of $1.1 million to go forth to City Council at this point. But I want to take any questions, but as you can see, special education and transportation costs are fluid and unexpected each year. So I will take any questions, or Tom, if you have anything else to say. Just a minute.
Thank you, Ms. Murtak. Sure we have some questions. Start off, Mr. Amico.
Thank you. Through the chair to Ms. Murtak, thank you for the presentation. So these, the shortfall here is, it's unexpected, as you said, and these are mandated regulations. We have no choice. We have to do this.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. Mr. Olympio?
Sorry.
You've indicated that with special education, actually out-of-district placements have gone down in the past year, correct? So that's, right, so the public may want to know if out-of-state, out-of-district placements have gone down, why has costs risen, and has it been the tuitions from the various
Yes, the special education department and Ms. Gruby's team has worked diligently, I did it again, sorry, diligently to bring our students back to Peabody, if possible. But tuition costs have gone up, 3 to 7%, depending. So that's really where the costs are. And again, transportation goes up, wages for drivers and services in transportation.
Okay, just to expand on this a little bit more. So every year, and it's kind of like other parts of the city budget, snow and ice removal, you never know exactly how that's going to go. Police and fire overtime, those are difficult numbers to project, certainly. Every year, we try to pick a number. And I know last year when we were working on the budget, we thought because we were reducing the number of cases that we might be able to make a reduction, and that's why that was done. But certainly, things have changed over the past year. And so it's my understanding that there's a number of students that have moved into the district this school year that we didn't anticipate or we weren't made aware of when we were doing the budget last year.
Correct.
And some of those students have needs that require residential placement.
Correct.
And so those are things, so
Residential placements, extended evals.
and those are
move-ins.
evaluations to, a student is going to go out of district for a period of time to be
Correct.
evaluated by an outside school?
Correct.
Is that what you mean by evals?
Yes.
Okay,
And different costs.
okay. And in terms of the transportation for homeless students and foster care students, so if a student starts here at Peabody High School and the foster care program has them relocated to Wakefield or Woburn or whatever city, they want to stay here in Peabody, which is very understandable, because that provides some stability, some comfort for that student, which is extremely important in their process. And I think Mr. Hockman's spoken of this. Then we pay the transportation if it's part of their program, the IEP. We pay the transportation to bring those students to school and return them home.
Correct.
All right, and those are, those numbers, again, are impossible to predict. And if you could, my understanding is the law has changed this year.
Correct.
Where previously the state had been paying a significant portion of that cost, and now the state has now told the individual school districts, not just Peabody, but all school districts, that they're required to pay.
Correct. The new regulation is that there's no more cost share. The district of origin owns that cost
And that just came into effect this year.
this year.
Okay. Okay.
Question.
I'll go to Mr. Arnottis, and I'll go to Mr. Hockman.
This is just a quick one. Now, this change, this is a regulation change rather than, is it a law change or is it a regulation change from DESI?
Yes.
So it's just a regulation that they set down, you know, as a blanket across the school district. So everyone's probably experiencing this together. This isn't unique to us as a district. This
Correct.
is,
Every district's facing this.
right,
Yes.
okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Arnottis. Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for that question, Mr. Arnottis. I was going to go there first. This regulation changed after we formulated our budget, so it was not a factor that was known to us for which we could have budgeted because the regulation hadn't changed by the time we passed our budget last year. First. Second is, this transportation line, we budgeted in a manner that was consistent with expenditures going back 3 years, which is something that we historically do. We look at the actual expenses over a period of time and budgeted for the transportation, homeless foster care transportation that was consistent with the expenditures that we had. If you look back at 2016, it was right in line with that budget. And then on this portion of the request being made by the superintendent, and I thank the mayor for acknowledging some of my comments in the past, but this is the right thing to do. There's no question about it. Kids who are no fault of their own either find themselves homeless and getting placed in shelters, that first available shelter, which may happen to be outside of the city of Peabody, or due to a foster care situation, you know, who knows what the reason or rationale was for removing a child from one foster care home in Peabody and placing them, whether it be Woburn, Wakefield, or anywhere else. The continuity that exists in their life is minimal, and for us to turn our backs on them and say we're not going to transport them back here so that they can continue their education with teachers they're familiar with peers that they're familiar with administrators that they're familiar with, to me would be shameful. We own this. We should own this. This is easy for me. With regard to special education, I think Ms. Gruby's here. She and her staff do a phenomenal job. have done a phenomenal job. They are always conscious of the budget. They're always conscious of expenditures. Kids present with what kids present with, and that's just the reality that exists in school. Mr. Amico talks about this all the time. Education today isn't education that existed for our fathers or mothers. It's a different animal now, and kids present with needs that we need to address and we should address. And this school year, we had an influx of students in our school system that required some significant needs, and some of them were out-of-district placements, and we own them. We own them, and we should support them. I've been on this committee for 10 years. This is the first time in the 10 years I'm been a member of this committee that we're asking for a supplemental budget. It's a pretty good track record. Sometimes things happen that are outside of our purview when we develop the budget, like this transportation expense, like students moving in that have extraordinary needs, and this just happens to be one of those years. These aren't overruns on line items for supplies, which very easily could have occurred based upon the way we pared back those line items in this budget. These are expenses that are unforeseen. These aren't anything where any department or any staff members are spending more than they knew that they had. This is just unforeseen expenses, and based on that, I absolutely would support the superintendent's request.
Very well said, Mr. Hockman. Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You made a very apt analogy at the very beginning of this discussion when you spoke of the snow removal budget. I think that's one of the only ones in the state where they recognize that you have you never have a solid figure during the year, and you're allowed to spend what you have to because it's public safety to remove snow. This is the same type of a situation where we're doing what the law requires with all due diligence, all the preparation, all the hard work the special education department has done to contain costs, to bring programs back into our city, to make sure that students are being taught properly here so we don't have to go out of the district unless there's some very specific needs. Everything that went into the preparation for our budget was done with an eye towards making sure that money was being very, very well spent and very carefully spent on certain line items. And then these things happen, and there is no control, just like a snowstorm. One year you may have a very light snow, and another year you may have blizzards. Having the law change and require the homeless transportation payments be made after our budget was completed is one more very significant occurrence that no one could see that coming. There's really no way to ever be able to calculate that because the whole ground shifted underneath the department. So it's unfortunate, but it is a necessary cost of educating our students according to the law, and it's a cost we have no control over, even though our department and our school department have tried so hard to take care of all the costs that they are able to control. These really, there is nothing else to be done other than to ask for supplemental budget.
Also well said, Mrs. Dunn. Just Mrs. Carpenter, turn to you.
Thank you. Ms. Murtagh, I just want to say I know how difficult this probably was for you to come forward with asking for a supplemental after your first year. I recognize, one, that it wasn't entirely your budget that you were working with, but two, even if it were, this wasn't something you could have predicted. And I think we all recognize that. It is very fluid, it's moving. You know, as many of my colleagues have already stated, these are necessary costs, these are important, these are deserved, these children should definitely be funded in the manner that we should fund them in. And it's true, Mr. Hockman has said in the 10 years he's been here, we haven't had one, and I've just been 2 more years than him, and Mrs. Dunn longer. So it is difficult for us to go forward for a supplemental. It's not easy, and I know it's not easy on the city councilors, and I know I will be standing behind you when you go forward. I'm encouraged to think that many of the members on the city council are former school committee members who will understand our position and understand the laws and the things that have changed and why we're in this situation. It's not from poor management. Mr. LaFleur, I'd like to thank you for the way you've handled the budget, and I recognize that this is no fault of either one of you. This is something that couldn't be avoided, and you have my support.
Mr. Mayor.
Go to you, Mr. Arnottis.
Thank you. Could I just request when we do move forward with this, and especially when we go towards the city council, could we have the language on the regulation from DESI that makes this,
Sure.
clear to us so they understand? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arnottis. Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make one final point for me is, had this $1.161 million in expenses that we're experiencing been presented to me in our budget as we were developing it, I would have supported it without blinking. So there's no reason for me not to support it now. And I think that that's the way this needs to be viewed. Had we known the regulations were going to change, we would have allocated additional resources for transportation. Had we known that we would have had this influx of students with extraordinary needs in the areas of special education, we all would have budgeted for it. So there's no reason to treat it any differently now. It's called a supplemental only because we didn't know about these expenses when we created the budget last year around this time.
Again, very outstanding comments. Just to add to it, I've always felt that public education is a beautiful thing, and the beauty is that we work hard in our city and in other cities and towns to educate all of our children, whatever their needs, wherever their circumstances are. Law requires it, but more importantly, it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing for our community to take care of all of our kids and do the best we can by them and educate them and meet their needs. And, we have to address this now. I applaud our leadership team for bringing this forward. We'll be going to the city council after a vote, and I think the city council will see what the work we're doing and what transpired here. It's going to have an effect certainly on our budget. It's going to require some work for us, not only for this budget, but as we begin working, I know in the next couple weeks on fiscal year 2020's budget, and there's going to be a great deal of work ahead of us as we try to attend to these costs and make sure that we're doing the best we can for the budget. So thank you, Ms. Murtagh, and if there's no other comments, I think it is necessary to make a vote to send a request to the city council asking for a consideration for a supplemental budget. I think there has to be a vote from this body to move forward to the city council.
Make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to request from the city council consideration for a supplemental budget in the amount of $1,161,662.02.
Second.
Thank you. You've heard the motion by Mrs. Carpenter, seconded by Mr. Olympio. On the motion, no comments. We will go to a roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Okay. Thank you. New business. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Murtagh, you have one additional item?
I do. I wanted to thank everybody for your support. I do appreciate it. And the other thing I have is I forgot to mention in my superintendent's report that PBD is going to be undergoing a coordinated program review next week and the week after in special education and in civil rights. So we'll keep you updated. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Murtagh. Items for the next agenda will be handled in the regular course. Our next meeting is
April 11th.
April 11th? April 11th will be our next meeting.
Student government as well.
Oh, the Student Government Day.
Yeah, so is it at City Hall now?
Yeah.
We won't be here.
So we will not be here. Student Government Day is April 11th.
Yes.
Oh, so we're not going to meet the 9th?
That's a Thursday.
Yeah, April 11th
Thursday.
is a Thursday.
So it's
Yeah.
April 9th.
So our
It's
meeting
April
will be April 9th.
So April 9th.
So our next regular school committee meeting is April 9th.
That's right.
We have the Student Advisory Board joining us.
Yes.
Are you trying to skip?
No, I had Student Government Day on my brain.
He's looking forward to Student Government Day. But no, our next regular school committee meeting is Tuesday, April 9th, here at the Higgins Middle School Library. The Student Advisory Board will be joining us that evening. And then we do have Student Government Day, one of the wonderful events of our city that we have been conducting now for a number of years, providing opportunities for our students to get a better understanding of the inner workings of our city. That is on for Thursday evening, April 11th, and that'll be at City Hall. So I look forward to those. Thank you very much for a good meeting. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.